Hey y'all, coming to you from the gym we go to this time. Boss lady Tina's giving me rabbit ears. She ornery like that. Any hooser, you can see they got pretty good rack of dumbbells here. This rack goes up to 100 pounds, and then they got these 110s. I crock row these 110s, and they're all right. I've got up to where I'm doing like 4 sets of 12, and then I started trying to add these magnets to them because it's taking too many reps and sets to get any work out of my crock rows with this weight. I need more weight, and I use those magnets, but they fall off and they slide around. And I got the idea, I'm wondering what it would be like to have a dumbbell that would accept these regular barbell weights. And I think I'm going to try and make one. I figure I'd get me some measurements and just make one, see what it's like, see how long it takes, and goof around with it a little bit. It's about an inch bar in the middle. And the other thing that you got to wonder about on a dumbbell, and of course it depends on what you're going to do with it, but it's not only this dimension on the inside where you're going to hold on to it, but with my idea of making one that you would be able to put barbell weights on, it makes me wonder, like, how long could you make it? Because obviously if you make it too long, there's going to be certain things you can't do with it. It'd be nice if you'd want it long as you could make it, because you'd be able to add as much weight as you ever pleased. But, obviously if you make it way too long, there's certain stuff you're not going to be able to use it for. But I did have a piece of leftover 1.5 inch plate. And I don't know if this is going to be worth doing anyway. And I'm sure that it's probably not worth doing if you had to buy the plate to do it. But since I had this left over, and it's been laying around for a long time, the 1.5 inch plate is something that'd be crazy expensive, but there's not a lot of call for it. So it's just not real likely I would use it. So I've got an 8 inch circle pattern that I stuck up into the old school Victor pattern torch here. And the one thing about this that I did that I probably shouldn't have done was I didn't want to take the time to change and put a bigger tip in the torch. I left, I think it's a number 1 I had in it, and that was definitely not big enough for 1.5 inch plate. And I thought, well, I'll just cut a little bit slow and it'll be all right. I probably should have put a number 2 or bigger tip in the torch, because I didn't get a very good cut on these, and it's just lucky that it's lucky I didn't make that mistake on something that was for a customer. I'm glad I did it on this, because it doesn't matter. Here's my bloodhound, old Dune, my Dune buggy. He's doing bloodhound things here in the family room. But anyway, I come in here because I wanted to see what one of these 1.5 inch plates that I'd cut would weigh in at. And I throwed it on the scale, and I got this 24 pounds. So that tells me that I'm going to be, if I get 4 of these, I was able to get 4 of them, and that's going to put me in the 100-pound range. So that's good. And removing this meal scale like I'm doing here is something I wanted to demonstrate, because this question came up recently where people were asking about how to remove meal scale, and there was a lot of different really good ideas. But I'd suggested this. I removed this meal scale with it was actually a diamond grinding wheel like you'd use on concrete. And I've used those for that purpose before, and they really work. Now, I'll warn you, if you do that, they scratch. You'll have deep scratches in your steel. But it's a very affordable way to grind steel with a diamond wheel and get that mill scale off there. There is some diamond wheels for steel, but they're crazy expensive compared to the ones for concrete. And I've used those ones for concrete to remove mill scale before, and they really work good. So anyway, I used the mag drill and I put some 1 1/16 inch holes in these plates, and I just thought it would make everything easier to line up that way. You could definitely weld these rods to the plates and do it in pieces without the hole, but I think it was worth drilling the hole just to make it easier to line the stuff up. And I got out the ARCCAPTAIN MIG205MP, and something I did different with this that I've never done before is rigged it up with some 045 wire that I got on sale. I got a really good deal on a 10 pounds or 11 pound spool of 045 wire. It was marked way down at my local Harbor Freight. It's not my favorite wire. It's not my favorite diameter, but I wanted to try some 045 with the Pulse MIG. And this was another time where I tried to do some arc shots and do some filming, and it didn't work. You can't see the puddle. But on Pulse MIG, with that gap I had with the 045 solid wire and a mixed gas, I filled these in. And the goal on the first pass, obviously, would be to try and have this either flush or even a little bit concave is nice. And I just wanted to goof around welding for this dumbbell. You know, it don't need to be welded that good, but if I was going to take the time to make something, I was trying to kill two birds with one stone, and this was an opportunity where I could use the pulse function on the 205MP and run some solid wire in the larger diameter and see what it did. So I did that, and there's been some people ask like what the pulse is for and whatever, and it's the pulse really, it allows you to run a lot more heat without the negative side of running too much heat. And one of the things that's positive about being able to run the kind of heat you can run with the pulse function is you can drag a bead and you can get the same fusion on the edges that you would get if you were pushing it with a MIG. So it makes this rollout on the welding positioner work real good. And then the other thing I wanted to do, I was on 169 with the 040. I was on 169 amps with the 045 wire on pulse, and I wanted to compare that to 169 amps with a 5/32 jet rod stick welding. So I ran some jet rod on the same heat. And with the jet rod and the 045 wire and the screaming hot temperatures that we're dealing with here in August in the Appalachian Basin, I had a couple occasions where the ARCCAPTAIN MIG205MP went error 60 on me and stopped running. And that don't freak me out none. Error 60 on there just means that it's shutting down because it got hot. Now, I did a lot more welding than this winter when I originally did the review on this machine. I ran 532, 3/16 1/4 inch rods. I ran a lot more on pulse. But when I did that, the temperature here in the shop was about 50 degrees less than what it is right now. So I would say that's a considerable factor, and I decided to run some more jet rod because I was really liking how that was going, and I wanted to crank it up. So I went up to 180 amps on the 532 7024 jet rod and laid them down. And man, that 205MP, it laid them down, boy. It scalded some beads on there for sure. And like I say, this is way more weld than it needed. And I had that thing had her cranked up and smoking. But I came over, I cut me a couple pieces of pipe for the larger diameter parts, and I got me some washers that I need to weld on those. And I came over to the ARCCAPTAIN 205 Pro, which had some 030 solid MIG wire in it. The smaller diameter was better for welding these washers to the pipe probably. And you can see I'm using like a rolling technique, rolling that on the table and welding it. But the purpose of that pipe is to add the larger diameter to the end of my dumbbell here. And this would be where those regular barbell weights could go on there, and the barbell stoppers that'll hold them in place could go on there. So I put them on there and I welded them on with the 205MP with the 045 wire on a rollout on the welding positioner, rolling it. And then I got some flat bar. I think it was 3/8 by 2. The reason I'm doing this is because I noticed on the 110-pound dumbbell at the gym, I noticed that on one of them it's bent. The center handle's been bent from somebody dropping it, which is not really a surprise. A lot of times lifting weights, we do what people call training to failure, where you lift it until you just absolutely can't do it anymore. So these things are going to get dropped. That's just going to happen. And so I don't think these flat bars are in the way. They're definitely not in the way for me doing my croc rows that I'm building this to do. So I think that the flat bars are going to keep it from getting bent. And really, if I was doing this, if I was buying material to do this, I would probably buy some kind of a stronger shaft for the center. Either use a piece of stainless steel or some high tensile steel. Me just having a 1-inch mild steel in there, I think we really need those flat bars to keep it from getting bent. But now we get to see what we got here. Weight-wise, I mean, that's kind of matters. It's a big deal. And it came in at 107.3 pounds, which is good. With the area that I've got on the ends where I can add barbell weights to it, for it to be 107 pounds, I mean, if I just put a 5 on each side, it would be 117. I've been croc rowing. I've been doing my croc rows with 115 because I've been using the 110-pound dumbbell and adding 5 pounds of magnets to it. So here we got a 107-pound dumbbell with some room to put some dumbbell weights on. And I guess we just need to go to the gym and lift this thing and see if it's going to work. It's not gorgeous. I could have done a better job on the cutting if I would have got the right size torch tip on there. I do my croc rows and a lot of my pulling things with these hooks, these D-Moose hooks. They're available on my Amazon storefront. There's a link in the description that'll take you to my Amazon storefront if that's something you'd be interested in. Really, anything you buy from Amazon, if you start out going to my Amazon link, I'll get a little credit for that, and it helps the channel. And here, getting into this first set, this is how I do my croc rows, and this is one of the exercises where I cheat. And based on the studying that I do, this is an exercise where it's accepted to cheat a little bit. You know, you can use a little bit of momentum to move the weight. A lot of other exercises, you're better off just use a lower weight and use more control. But on the croc rows, the experts, just about everybody agrees that on the croc rows, you want to lift as much weight as you can lift, and just kind of, if you got to use a little momentum to get the motion in, then you gotta do what you gotta do. And I did a video on this gym caddy that I built that carries my drink and my stuff that I carry around. It's a place to put my phone. And I tell you what, man, I'm so glad I built that thing. I knew it would be good, but it's came in way handier than I ever could have dreamed. So I guess what I'll mention on this second set is I'm in the gym today doing something I've never done because I'm wearing my Fitville work boots. I'm wearing the Fitville steel core work boots in the gym. These are the ones that's got the composite toe. And I decided to wear them today and see what it was like lifting weights in them. They're that comfortable. You know, they're composite toe work boot, and they're so comfortable. Like I'm wearing them to the gym, and it's keeping my toes safe. You know, there actually was a friend of mine's wife actually dropped a 45-pound weight plate on her feet at one point in this gym, and it broke every bone in her foot when she did that. So I guess she needs a pair of steel toes to work out in. Maybe I can convince her to get her a pair. But yeah, getting these croc rows done. What I did was that red thing is the gizmo that holds the weights in place. And I put a 5 on each side. So I'm at 100. I'm croc rowing 117 pounds here. 117.3 to be exact. And I'm doing these on a 3 sets of 10. And I might try next time. I don't know if I'll try. I don't think I'll go up in weight because it's taking too much momentum for me to get the reps in, but I might add a set because I was doing 4 sets with a little bit less weight, and now I'm doing 3 sets today with now that I'm over 115. But I've been doing these croc rows, and I definitely it's one of the things I've gained on quite a bit in the last year. It's one of the exercises where I think I started out doing these with 50s or 60s to give you an idea, you know, how far it's come. But anyway, glad to get them in, man. Feels good. Couple things to take away from this little project. This is a box for that 045 wire that I got such a good deal on I was talking about. And you don't normally get such a great deal on this wire. They had this 045 wire on an 11-pound spool and this 025 wire on an 11-pound spool. I saw this at the local Harbor Freight and saw that it was on sale, and I calculated the cost per pound, and the cost per pound for that wire was lower than any way I could buy wire. And I've checked it before, and it's not normally like that. So it was a deal. It was lower than the ARCCAPTAIN solid wire that I really like, and it was lower than the P3 wire that I get from the welding supply when I buy it at my local welding supply. So I bought the 045 and I bought the 025. I haven't opened the 025, but I want to go over a little bit about this diameter thing. And I've been reminded, it's been a long time since I've run 045 solid wire, but I did quite a bit on this. And what I've been reminded of is information that I think you might be able to use, because I don't think it's worth getting 045. I've worked in a lot of big shops where that's all we used was 045, and all we welded was, you know, big stuff. There was nothing thinner than 1/8. So the 045 was never an issue. It might be at times, you know, on big stuff, a benefit. But here's what I'm going to say overall on wire diameter. The 045 making big welds is what you would think of with big diameter wire. But when you run 030 or 035 wire and you turn the heat up and turn the wire speed way up, you can make just as big of welds. I can make I can make welds that are 1 inch wide with 030 wire. You know, when do you need to make a whole lot bigger weld than that? So do you need 045 wire to make big welds? No. And you can make probably the biggest welds that most people are normally going to make with 030 or 035. But what about welding thin material? I'll tell you, if you're welding thin material or trying to make very small, really pretty welds, you'll notice it's way easier with 030 or 035. It's a pain in the ass with 045. Welding really thin stuff is rough with 045, where it's a lot easier with smaller wire. So what I'm basically saying is there's not a huge benefit in the bigger wire. And on the other side of that coin, I'm also going to say about that 025, that's too small. I mean, really, I'm going to, at some point, something will come up where I can get some use out of that, and we'll take a look at it then. But I can weld razor blades together with 030. Like, why do you need wire smaller than 030? It's pretty rare. I mean, I would do body work with 030. So just to give you my opinion on wire diameter, I don't think there's a big benefit in buying wire outside of the 030 and 035 for most people, unless you have a specific use that requires it, which there may be, you know, some specific things. I'm just talking as an overall. The other thing I'll mention on it, there's been people ask about the pulse. We did some pulse MIG welding with the ARCCAPTAIN MIG205MP that'll pulse MIG. I did a bunch of pulse MIG welding with it when I did the review on it. If you want to check out the review on that, it's on the channel. I did a bunch of pulse MIG then. But the thing I noticed most on steel, if you run pulse MIG, you can drag and get just as good of your edge washing in, fusion and everything, cleaning action. You can get that out of a solid wire MIG in a drag if you pulse. And if you run a lot of solid wire MIG, you probably already know the edges of the weld seem to wash in and fuse in better, and you get a better cleaning action if you push it. And most of the welding probably that I do with a solid wire MIG is a push, you know, a push motion like this. When you drag, a lot of times you'll notice the edge of your bead not really fused that good. Looks like it's kind of laying on top. When you pulse, what you basically get with pulse is you get a lot of the benefits of running really high heat, but not the negatives of running really high heat. It's not going to put so much heat into the material that you're overheating it. If you run a solid wire MIG really, really hot without pulse and you're trying to drag it, what you'll notice sometimes is like your wire's pushing back into such a hot puddle that you can't really deposit metal nicely, and pulse eliminates that. So there's the benefits there. The other benefits is if you pulse MIG on aluminum. Then the main thing there is the fact that you can have the benefit of having a lot of voltage that helps you bust through the oxide layer. But when the pulse goes on its lower voltage, it's not heating up the metal as much, which is a big deal on aluminum because aluminum just gets so hot so fast. When you pulse, it's high voltage, low voltage, high voltage, low voltage, high voltage, low voltage. And while it's on high voltage, it's giving you that benefit to blast through the oxide layer when you're MIG welding aluminum. But when it's on the low voltage, it's giving the material time to not get so hot. And it can help a lot with pulse on, pulse can help a lot on MIG welding aluminum and also MIG welding aluminum in a situation where you have to drag. Generally, with MIG welding aluminum, you always want to push, but like there's occasions where you want to go downhill where you can't really push downhill and get a good effect. It's more of a drag when you go downhill. And like on steel, where I was rotating that part, you can't really push when you rotate something. It's always kind of a drag effect if you're going to do rollouts like on pipe, or roll out like I did that. I turned that dumbbell on my welding positioner. That gives it a sort of a drag. And the other thing that happened while I did this welding is on the ARCCAPTAIN MIG205MP, we got Air 60. And that's the first time I've been able to get Air 60. I've heard of it, people talking about it. But that's the first time I've been able to get Air 60 out of the smarter ARCCAPTAIN machines. When they get hot, they're going to do that. It doesn't hurt anything. The machine's protecting itself. Basically, if you're getting Air 60, it means it's time to go get a drink of water. That's exactly what I did. When I got the Air 60 the first time, I said, yep, she's hot. It's time to go get a drink of water. And I went in the break room. I filled up a quart mason jar of water. I sat down and drank the whole thing. I came back in the shop. The Air 60 was gone, and I went back to work. It was good for the machine. It was good for me, too. It was time to take a break. The Air 60 is when the machine gets too hot. And the interesting thing about it happening now that's different is when I originally reviewed the ARCCAPTAIN MIG205MP and did not at any point get error code 60, I welded with it just as hot and a lot longer duration than I did in this occasion where I did get error code 60. But it was about 50, it was winter time when I reviewed that machine, and it was probably about 50 degrees cooler in this shop when I did that. And it's not to say that, I mean, right now it's August. It's hot here. Well, it depends on what you call hot. I mean, there's some guys on the ARCCAPTAIN Facebook that are in areas like Arizona where they get a whole lot hotter than I get deal with here. But I mean, in the shop, when I was getting the error code 60, it was probably between 95 and 100 degrees in here. So, and that's not to say that it being hot in the shop really is going to make the machine hotter. The machine's hot because you're running the guts out of it, doing what you're doing, running a lot of volts or amps. But it's just not going to cool as efficiently, If the air that's the fan is pulling through that machine is 90 or 100 degree air as opposed to air that's 40 or 50 degrees, obviously there's a difference there. So don't freak out over the Air 60. Just take a break. Don't get so excited. But anyway, that's that little project. I would say overall that building a dumbbell like I did is a bad idea. You could buy a set of 220-pound dumbbells for about $300. So if you were going to buy a sheet of 1.5-inch plate and do that, it'd be a money-losing operation. I had that plate. It was laying around for a long time. I wanted to do something with some pulse because people had been mentioning it. And who knows, when you make something, and when you're in business for yourself and you make something like that and you take it somewhere locally and leave it with an NBS welding sticker on it, somebody might see it and say, oh, I need something welded. Here's the phone number. I'll just call this guy. And you might get a job out of it. And if you get one job out of it, it's worth it. So anyways, I want to thank y'all for watching. And remember, like I always say, learn how to work with what you got. And that way you'll always have everything you need.